Interview with John Cartwright. John, we'll start with something that we'll not be putting out until 6 o'clock anyway tonight, but confirmation that Jordan Lane is leaving to join Castleford. What's your reaction to the fact that he's moving on and leaving his hometown club?
Oh, he's a player we would like to have kept, no doubt about that. Jordan's sort of been mulled over that decision for a while. He got a really good offer from Cass. I think it's 4 years. And, you know, he toed and froed, and he decided at the end of the day, and, you know, no one's going to hold it against him. It was the best decision for him and his family. So, you know, we're very happy for him that he's sorted his future out and he's comfortable with that. But yeah, I love Jordan as a footballer. A good team man. He would have been good to keep around, but that's the business we're in.
What kind of servant has he been to you, and how have you found working with him across this last year?
Yeah, he's a sort of player like the coach. He's no frills. Yeah, he tells you what's on his mind, but you know, he never. Unfortunately, he's been injured for a big chunk of it. You know, he broke that arm very early in the season. We had a bit of a slow healing process, but what he brings when he's on the field, he's a no frills, a good leader, very popular amongst his peers, and just a general all-round good guy. You know, who's a very good footballer.
Let's move on to this week, and we'll start with Jack Ashworth. A 7-game ban. What's your reaction to the length of suspension he's received?
Yeah, well, it's a tough one, I suppose. You know, I haven't been here long enough to fully get the understanding of how the judiciary works. Yeah, my take on it was a minimum 6 weeks. He only got a 6-week suspension, but he had a 4 points carryover, which that led him into 7 weeks. So he basically got the minimum penalty for the charge that he was given. Yeah, I might have to be a long time before I fully understand the decisions of the match review and the judiciary.
Any thoughts about he was harshly treated, or a precedent was set by so many games ban?
Well, as I said, with the charge that he got the minimum sentence. So he could have got more. The 7th week was as a result of the 4 points that he had throughout the year. So, look, you know, we pled our case, and that's what they come up with, and yeah, so we've got to live with it.
Other players are obviously missing this week. Jordan Rapana gets a 2-game ban, and then obviously 1-game suspensions for Amir Burra and Yusuf Aiden. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems to have been a very tough week. I don't know, you know, whether the games were looked at closer. Or more closely, I'm not sure. But I think it's probably the sign of a bigger problem with the point system that they've created. You know, when you don't pressure test these systems, there's going to be players that have earned points now going into next year. They're going to be carrying 3 and 4 points. So we're just going to be constantly losing players. They carry the points for 12 months. So you don't have to do a lot to lose a point these days. So it's you know, I've read a little bit about, you know, some people in the game having comments on it, but unless you fully pressure test something, such a major rule like they've brought in there, you're going to get to these positions because they haven't been tested.
What it does mean is that in the case of Jack, he's obviously played his last game as a Hull FC player, moving on at the end of the season. Are you sad, disappointed that was his swan song, that was his final game, that he leaves the club in this manner?
Yeah, it's any player that gets suspended for that length of time. Look, I'm not condoning the incident. You know, I spoke with Jack straight after the game, and I spoke with him again when we did the review. It's I don't condone the incident, but you know, it was a derby game. It was a heated battle, and for anyone to think that was the only incident in the game, you know, they weren't watching the game properly. You know, there was things that went into that game from both sides that, as coaches, you don't want to see. But I feel Jack's been punished heavily for the incident when there was a whole lot of other things in the game where they could have been just as serious.
And depending on results in this next 2 games, it may also be Jordan Rapana's played his last games for the club as well. I'll ask you the same question. Is it sad that potentially his Hull FC career comes to an end with a ban?
Well, we don't plan for that to happen, but Yeah, the fact that it's a possibility is really disappointing. And again, it's a result of some points that he's accumulated early in the year. The grade ones, you lose 3 or 4 of those through the year, and then you open yourself up. He got a couple of late shots which carried 3 points, so he's automatically suspended. So them ones I understand. It's probably the grade ones that and the lower level grades where you just pick up a point here and there. Which the general person in the stand wouldn't even notice. Them losing those single points, but unfortunately they keep adding up.
You've obviously brought in Hugo Salabio back and Denise Barnforth back from their respective loan spells. What kind of shape have they come back in? How much are they ready to pull on a black and white shirt again this week?
They'll be fine. They've been training with Super League clubs. Denise's been playing. That was the whole reason he went there was to get good minutes. We had Hooker here who plays big minutes, and he's been able to go over there and play big minutes. So he's ready to go. Hugo's had a couple of injuries and he's been in and out a little bit. But unfortunately, after the weekend, we didn't have a lot of choice. I think we've got 12 players sidelined that could possibly be playing this week. So at the end of the day, we didn't have a lot of choice, but got full confidence in them. They've spent big blocks of training here. They've gone and trained with Super League clubs. They're fit and they're in shape and they're ready to go.
They're obviously coming back because you need them to play and need them to be part of the squad. But they went out because they weren't playing. Do they come back hungry with a point to prove?
I think you've always got a point to prove, no matter when you're playing. Denise, signed a decent length contract, but they're competitive people. They want to be at their best every week. There's an opportunity here to play finals footy. I believe it's still wide open, that 6th spot. They're a chance to come in, show what they can do in pressure situations and in big games. And there's nothing better as a player than playing in big games.
You've got a couple of players now tied up to new deals. First of all, Lingy Sao obviously hasn't played a great deal this season because of injury, but you must be impressed with the way he's come back and he's obviously got his fitness right, getting his fitness right. How impressed have you been that he's worked hard enough and recovered enough to earn himself a 1-year deal?
Yeah, he's impressed everyone with the way he's gone about his business. He's probably in, I would say, the best shape of his career physically. He's had sort of 8 months now of rehab. He wouldn't be far away from playing if we're able to play him. He's sort of reached that far within his rehab, but it's not only what's done for himself, it's what he's done for everyone else in the rehab group. He's pretty much like an extra coach in that regard. He's his father figure, a great leader. And with the injury to Herman, not knowing the full length of time that could take, we know a minimum, we know a maximum. And he'll also be a great assistance with him, when he starts his recovery.
And in the case of Aidan Caesar, gets a 2-year deal, so sees in the next couple of seasons. Obviously, he'll be nearer to 36, 37 by the time his new deal now expires. What do you see him bringing in those 2 years?
Same as he's brought this year. I think it's more closer to 35, 36 when he finishes. So he'll bring the same stuff that he's brought on the football field. He's won us several games. He makes the players around him better. He's a proven genuine number 7, which they're hard to come by.
Let's just talk about the derby itself. Looking back, you've obviously had time to sort of decompress and look back at the video and do what you have to do to analyse games. How do you look back on the game with a few days removed?
Oh, look, we were well in the game. There was a couple of moments, and that's what wins big games is moments. A couple of moments. I think the Zach try right on half time. That was a big moment in the game. The sin binning after half time was another big moment in the game. They sort of got away from us there. I couldn't have been more happy with our effort in the game. We competed with them for big chunks of it. Weight of possession and field position was well against us. Hostile crowd, just 50-50 calls just definitely didn't go our way. But with 10 minutes to go, we scored at 14-4. You're not out of the game. I thought the most disappointing thing, I suppose, from our point of view, was just a bit of our discipline in the second half. With what we had available on the field, and with we had to be squeaky clean discipline-wise, and I think we come up with 3 forward passes in the second half, which probably took the momentum out of our sail and cost us any chance of sort of coming back and winning the game.
You were, and because of necessity, had to use Callum and Lloyd Kemp as part of that team on Sunday. Are they ahead of schedule in terms of their development? And how much has being involved in that intensity of a derby likely to help them going forward?
Yeah, look, they're 18-year-old kids, so that whatever they show now, they're going to get better at. As far as being ready to play Super League, they do everything they possibly can. Physically, we've got to help them along the way. They're still young boys. You've only got to look at them. They could pass as ball boys if they had to. But tremendous kids, hold of the bone, and went out and took the game on. Lloyd in particular took some really, really extra attention, and I thought he handled it with aplomb. But as far as what that game will do for them, no end. Callum went out and just attacked the game. Players around him, come off sort of just in raptures about how he approached it. It was aggressive and wanted to take them on. That's a good head start for any player in any position.
You obviously will have a smaller squad this week to pick from, and a lack of, as you say, maybe up to 12 players available, senior players available. Is there some element where you can use this as a positive, because you have obviously still got games with a reason to play and things to play for, that actually through the adversity, as we saw last season, that some of the younger players can use this to their development and help them become fast learners?
Yeah, well, it's not. There's no talk about being better players from the game we're playing. We're out there to win the game. We're out there to win this week, and they're out there to win next week. And we've got to really comfortable with the team that we have going. To take on the Warrington this week. Great mix of youth, experience, and guys that want to prove themselves. So that's what this week's all about, isn't it? We're not too worried about what they're going to be doing in 3 or 4 years' time. It's about everything's about beating Warrington this week. Yeah,
and on that, obviously, such a big game in terms of your ambitions to be top 6. How do you look at the game? How are you preparing for it? Are you preparing for it as a make or break game in the season?
No, you can't put too much pressure on the team. You can't. It's probably cliched, but you can't just talk about winning the game. We've just got to bring what was good last week and improve where we think we need to improve. So that's what the week will be about. You get certain things right in this game, you just win. So that's what the week will be about. We know the importance of it. It is make or break with 2 games to go.
We are in this very strange position that you are looking not too far away at a Hull Kingston Rovers win. You need Hull KR to win to do you a favour. They're at Wakefield, obviously. Will you have some members of the team keeping an eye on that scoreline? Will that be something that you're factoring in? No, we can't control what's happening over there. Anything that takes our focus away from what we got to do, we're not doing our job. So whatever happens over there, we can't control. We just got to. It doesn't matter if we don't get a job done on Warrington anyway. And as for Warrington, they don't really have a great deal to play for. They, similarly to you, have players missing as well, but they're in the situation where the chairman relatively recently put a statement out supporting his coaching team, the cultures at the club. Does that make them to some extent more dangerous? Because the shackles are off them, aren't they, now for the rest of the season? But there's players there, there's a coach there with points to prove potentially to his own fans and his own boss. Yeah, look, again, it's not something that I lose any sleep over. I don't know how they're going to turn up. So if you start taking your focus off your own team, you're missing things. We just got to be prepared for the best of Warrington, and if we do that,
that's our main focus. We've just got to be ready for their best. Hopefully, we can improve on what we did last week, and we'll see where that takes us.
And Connor Bailey is a player who's been heavily linked with Hull FC over the last season. This weekend, he's got the chance of winning the League Leaders' Shield with York. They all but have confirmed that. Are you close to signing Connor Bailey?
Yeah, look, the club will put a statement out when those things are done. There's been negotiation with Connor, but the club they'll put out a statement when that's ready to go.
But you potentially are getting a player that's about to win the championship and goes on to what hopefully will be a successful grand final for them as well. Does that whet your appetite that a player's potentially making a transition from part-time rugby to come to Hull FC as a winner?
Oh, look, mate, that's next year. I'm certainly not looking at that as far as what we're doing at the moment. My focus we haven't taken our eyes off what's important this week.
Hi, John.
How you doing?
You mentioned other stuff that went perhaps unpunished in the game. One thing that did come out was Elliot Minchella, and he got a grade A. There was an explanation that came out, but how does that sit from the Hull FC point of view? Because the replays didn't look nice, certainly for Lewis.
Yeah, I don't. The ins and outs of how the judiciary works, I'm still sort of getting my head around it. That was I think he got a point for that. I think Amir Burrow got a point for pushing him over in a separate instance. So, if you line the two things up along side by side, I just wonder how they come to the conclusion that they both deserve 1 point. Fans out there saw it. I'll leave that for them to decide.
Baffling. Obviously our job is to try to put an explanation on it, but you can't because they said he slipped, but he stepped. So, as coaches, how would you even get around that? No,
there'll be an explanation, but the explanations are just words. Like we'll all have an opinion on what happened. I have an opinion on what happened. So does the match review committee. I'm sure KR have a view on it as well, but. We can't. Again, it's not something in our control. We just got to do what we've been dealt with. We got dealt pretty heavily.
I suppose the good thing there is Lewis is okay.
Yeah, to all our players' credits, whenever anyone copped something, which is probably why there wasn't a lot of talk about it, they got straight to their feet. We didn't have players lying down begging for penalties. They got up and got straight to their feet. And certainly really proud of the toughness our boys showed.
In terms of toughness, Harvey got a tough one. Obviously, that kept him out of the derby. Is he going to be all right to feature this week? Yeah,
he trained today. I'll just have to get across the medical people to make sure he's done all his testing, but I assume he has because he was full contact today. He was fine.
So it's just the standard return to play protocols. Good stuff. And in terms of Sam Esse, how was he doing with his hammy?
Yeah, he should be right this week. He trained. It was really close last week, but just being a hamstring, we'll just give it that extra week. And he trained fully today. He's hit top speed, so he should be fine.
Given what you've lost through suspension, that's a big boost if he does play.
Yeah, fortunate. He's been really good for us this year, Sam. He makes a difference when he comes on the field. And that's was part of the reason why we just didn't risk him last week was, knowing that he'd be close to 100% this week, and knowing that we still got a chance and have to win 2 games.
So it's a good chance for Sam to put himself, about. Obviously he's got a contract at Wigan for next year, but whatever comes after that, I suppose it's a chance at the very least to finish strong here.
Yeah, I think he's just enjoying his football. Sam, he loves his time here. He's really popular with the players, close with them all. I think that's why his footy has risen a level. I think he's just in a comfortable place.
Obviously, there's been a lot that's happened since we were talking about Sam's future. Obviously, there's been a couple of signings that have been announced, a couple of retentions. Is it going to be too many props now to keep Esse, or where do you sit there?
Well, we can't. He's contracted to Wigan, so there's no. There was initial talk around it, and it was pretty. Not a situation that we could solve, so we couldn't wait on our heels. We've signed a complement of middles we're comfortable with, but who knows what happens beyond that.
2 games, you win them, it could be a playoff side this year. And it's simple when you say it like that, but how big of an achievement would that be for the club?
Yeah, it would be. From the outside looking in, I sort of, as the season rolled on, I was really confident that we were good enough to be a top 6 team. I think we've managed situations really, really well, especially over the last probably 10 to 12 games. I don't think we've won a high percentage of those games, but there's a lot of games there that we really had to dig deep to come up with a result. And I thought we've learnt to struggle, and we've learnt to deal with some really tough situations, and that's a really good thing to have in the bank, for the next couple of games and moving forward next year.
I mean, when you dive deeper there, there's been points mid-season where what a good percentage of the cap was in the standings, obviously with John and with Will, and then it's got worse now with obviously Liam and Herman going down. So the fact you're going to finish the season with, dare I say, half the cap in the stand and you're still fighting on this front, that's got to be a testament to what you've instilled in the side this year. Yeah,
we've certainly lost games that we would love to have won, but I think we've actually built a bit of grit, even more so since then. I think the tougher the situation, the more they seem to lap it up. We've had a really hard run over the last month, and the only game that got away from us was Leeds. It was sort of in the middle of it. I think we pushed St Helens all the way. We beat Lee. We beat Wigan. And, I really believe we were more than competitive against KR the other day. So to be able to do that with, what's on the sideline, you got to be gritty. You don't do those things without being a gritty team.
Obviously, team news is still to come, obviously, with the 21 and obviously match day side. But if Callum Kemp does play again, is it the same message again? Go attack the game, just do your role?
Yeah, you don't need to tell Cal. He reminds me of an old school halfback. He goes to the game. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to kick. He wants to tackle. He's like his brother Lloyd. They're just backyard footballers, I call them. They're just kids. When they got home from school, they would have went out the back and kicked the ball around, and Mum would have had to call them in for dinner. When it was dark.
Patience is crucial. You did mention it on Sunday after the game, because I think we can be guilty of this in every club, in every league in the world of rugby league, not putting too much pressure on these lads straight away, because, like you said, they're 18 years old, they're babies. Yeah,
look, when everyone's healthy, you're not going to go through a year with everyone's healthy, so they get these little opportunities along the way. We've just signed Aiden for another year, extended him for an extra year. But that doesn't mean Cal and Lloyd and Logan and other guys are not going to get their chances. You need it. Well, I think we've had 33 players this year, so you need a good thick squad, and these guys are the lessons they're learning by playing these big games. By the time they get to another 2 years' time, they're still only 20 years of age. You'd think they're going to be even more than ready to take over by then.
And how much influence will Caesar have there? Aiden Caesar, obviously, he's here for the 2 seasons. Training every single day, watching him, studying him, learning from him. He's going to have a massive part to play in it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great for Aiden because he loves doing it. He loves passing on his knowledge. It's what makes him the leader that he is. He's not what would you say? He's honest. He's brutally honest. So if they need pulling in the line, he pulls them in the line as well. So that's what you want out of your leaders. You don't want everything rosy, because if it's not rosy, if it is rosy, we'll so be it. But for all the young kids in those sort of key positions, to have a guy like him around to learn from, it's. You can't put a monetary value on it. It's going to make them really good players at a young age, and money will look after itself.
I suppose for Callum as well, or whoever it may be in the future, if let's say, for example, in a couple of years, if he did take the mantle from Aiden, studying him and learning how he plays, as that proper 7 rather than a split-sided halfback, I suppose that's crucial as well, developing how you want him to play.
Yeah, it depends on who's in your team, but just to be able to, I think he's a smart enough kid to be able to sort of cope with that. I think, especially with this is his first full pre-season, so the best thing about him is his aggressive approach, his willingness to learn, and he's a tough boy.
Brilliant. Cheers, John. All the best.
Mate.
Hi, John. In terms of the sort of business end of the season, teams fighting for them finishing places, I think the pressure's off for a majority of the coaches at this present time, barring a 2 or 3. Is this currently situation, bear in mind all the injuries, suspension, coming into 2 important games, is this something that puts a lot of pressure on yourself?
I don't really feel any pressure, to be honest with you. Especially game day is probably the only time, you feel a bit of nerves in the course of the game. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving every minute of it. This is why you do it. This is why you play. Yeah, we'd love to be first, sitting on top of the ladder, but we're not. We're fighting. And if you don't enjoy it, you won't find success in it either. If they sense you're a bit scared of it, well, that's not the good message to send. I'm truly loving every minute of it. The fact that we're 2 games to go and we're still alive and we're still, confident that we can win our last 2 games. Now, if that's good enough, well, so be it. If it's not, we'll just move into next year with a level of confidence that probably wasn't there 12 months ago.
Yeah, and you've sort of answered me supplementary question there. Is this something that coaches, your staff and everybody will relish being in positions like this? Because it will test your resolve as well.
It is. It's exciting. You got to love a challenge, Well, at the end of the day, we've got to win 2 games, it's out of our control now, depending on on the other results that happen. But I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute up until this joint. You've got to enjoy the tough times as well as the good times, because tough times are there, and you just got to think and know that the tough times are going to prepare you for when you get into these situations. So, looking forward to this weekend. If we can get a result, we're still alive.
Great. So, thanks, John. Go good on Saturday.
Thank you.
John, going into these last 2 games of the season, Warrington and Catalan, who are both effectively playing for nothing, and you've brought back Hugo Salabia and Deneve Barnforth, does it feel like a bit of a strange build-up this week at all? Is it much the same but feels a bit different because there's blokes there that haven't been there for that long?
So I probably haven't thought of it that way. I think we're just fortunate that they've been. You put players out on loan to get them football. So Hugo probably hasn't played as much as what he would have hoped. I know he's had a bit of a calf injury, but he played a couple of weeks ago. He's been in a full-time system, and he probably, the last thing he probably thought was sort of getting pulled out of not playing and just training with the extra players at Cass into a chance to play for a side, for a final. So he's really excited. He can't wait. And Deneve the same. He probably didn't expect to get called back this week because we got he wouldn't be able to play the following week. But through necessity, he's here and he's in a team that's fighting for a final spot. So they're both excited, and it's there for us all to see. You can feel it.
And of course, for Deneve, he's coming up against his former club this week, and then his former loan club the following week. I mean, it's got to feel a bit strange for him, hasn't it? Potentially.
Yeah, it's that bit strange for me because it doesn't happen. Where I've sort of cut my teeth. It's you get players change mid-year, but it's full time as a rule. They don't sort of loan players out and get them back. So that's a bit different, but it's been in the game here a long time, so I don't think it's a huge surprise to guys that they do go on loan and then come up against them.
Going into these 2 games, as I said, they're playing for nothing, you're playing for the playoffs. How does the attitude differ between yourselves and the 2 other teams that are actually playing for nothing?
We've just got to make sure that we don't rely on the occasion to get us up for the game. You still got to tackle hard, you still got to run hard, you still got to complete your sets, you still got to make it uncomfortable for the opposition. Like the occasion, that the fact that we're playing to stay alive is there, but that ain't going to do it for us. We still have to make it happen with our actions. So that's sort of been the message for us early in the week, is that the fact that you're playing for a spot and they can't make the semis is null and void if you don't take advantage of it.
And I know you've mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to ask again: how different does it make it, the fact that they're not playing for anything, and on top of that, you're hoping for a Hull KR win at Wakefield? How much of a problem does that cause for you if you're keeping an eye on, if anybody's keeping an eye on what's happening at Wakefield?
Yeah, we've been good at seeing through those things. I think all you can do is talk about it. Our focus has got to be going out and beating Warrington. That's because if that don't happen, it don't matter what happens at any other ground this weekend. So that's all we'll talk about. We haven't referred to KR. We haven't referred to their game against Wakefield. It's just all about us. I'm sure they're aware of it. I'm aware of it, but I know deep down that it don't matter if we don't prepare right for this game.
One last thing from me. The last time you played Warrington, they got over the top of you. How dangerous would it be to think of? We want to redress that balance from that game.
Well, again, it's not spoken about. So whether some players carry that with them, I don't think so. It's so many changes have happened since then for both sides. The competition's at a stage now where it's at. So different players on the field, different place. There's a lot of things at play there. So it's certainly not something that we'll talk about.
Okay, John, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.